Hello and welcome to this webinar about how to use data platforms for better local decision maker. I'm Diana Lopez and I'm the advisor on cities and local government at UNDP here in New York. It's a little early in the morning, so apologies about my state today. We have normally an interpretation that should be working. We are checking on it, so there should be interpretation to Spanish in a moment. Vamos a poder poner interpretación al español en unos momentos. Just some housekeeping. We are going to record this webinar. Normally we upload that in our YouTube channel. And then we welcome you, all participants, to use the chat to bring questions, comments, and anything you want to share through the chat. The moderator will be using the chat to communicate with you. Without further ado, allow me to give the floor to the moderator, our colleague Callum Hanford. He's the Digital Programs Strategic Manager at the Global Center for Technology, Innovation and Sustainable Development, which is a joint initiative of the Government of Singapore and UNDP. So over to you, Callum. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana, and good morning to everyone if you're in this part of the world, or good afternoon or good evening. It's a real privilege to have you all with us today. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, and we'll also be taking questions from the chat during the course of the session as well. So feel free to type in questions and I'll try and pick them up during the course of the discussion. And so I'm going to share my screen and walk through a little bit of broader context about data and what it means for cities and communities around the world. And then I'll hand over to our two distinguished panelists to present some of their case studies from the cities in which they're working. So hopefully you can all see my screen. Perfect, fantastic. I see Diana nodding, thank you. So globally, we see over 300 million terabytes of data are produced every single day. If you're a little bit old like me, that's equivalent to about 63 billion DVDs of data is produced every single day. So every minute, we're seeing people around the world sharing photos, they're sharing videos, governments are leveraging data to improve public service delivery, and also cities are using data to improve people's lives and their livelihoods. So we see data as the kind of domain of all actors and all sectors and all contexts and all communities, from private sector platforms to government data sets and open data processes, and then also the role of civil society in shaping feedback loops in the context of data as well. So we hear data being called things like the new oil, the new sand, the new gold, the new currency, the new water, and potentially many, many other descriptors as well. But data is useless if it's not put into action. And in that sense, it can be seen almost as like sand, requiring it to be shaped into a new product in order to add value. But this value also means data can be seen as a currency or commodity. Data can have tremendous economic and social value, but not if it's not used or if it's not used in the right ways. And I'll talk to that in a moment as well. So much of our work at UNDP is about building the processes, workflows, and the skills, and supporting individuals and institutions to ensure that data drives decision-making and positive social change as well. And this is a crucial part of innovation, as many of our tools and technologies, from mobile phones to IoT to satellite imagery, are producing or driven by data. But when we talk about data, what does it actually mean in practice? So data is information and insights, and I use an acronym for this sometimes. That data, in terms of what we use in development, can be described as BLT data. The B stands for big data. So this is data generated often by computers or digital processes. So, for example, data taken from sensors, which one of our presenters will talk to in a moment. And often when we talk about big data, this is data about millions of different data points, and it requires specialist skills, software, and workflows. The L is about what we call lean data. So using kind of more actionable and agile measurement approaches to improve how we iterate, refine, and also deliver products and services. Tools like you can see on the screen here, like the Net Promoter Score, are one example of lean data. And then finally, we have thick data. So this is kind of qualitative data, the lives and livelihoods behind the big data points, spending time in communities, in local contexts, speaking to people, and then bringing those insights into the policymaking and decision-making process. But unfortunately, data isn't equal. So we rely on the data that we have available or what we can actually collect. And sometimes we can't collect data on some locations or populations. And that means if we're using this data to make decisions, then we're making decisions that may not be the right ones for some people. If we can't count you, then you may not be counted. And also, even the biggest data sets are a snapshot, a moment in time, a perspective, or an angle. And this extends to the entire data lifecycle. For example, data visualization. We see many dashboards being used during the pandemic, but what was sometimes forgotten is that the aspects that can't be easily measured, are simply left out from visualization. So there's a whole life cycle of how we include, make sure people include it in data. And we may not even be able to collect or use data in the first place. Less than 20% of low and middle income countries have modern data infrastructure. So things like data centers, cloud computing, policies, and so on. And data may not always be open or shared. Only 8% of data sets essential for innovation or demanded by innovators, things like geospatial data, public transport timetables, and similar, are actually open data published by cities and countries. And then data may also exacerbate inequalities. For example, emerging tech such as AI is very data intensive, and this data usage has a negative impact. Training one single basic deep learning AI model can actually generate emissions roughly equal to the lifetime carbon footprint of 5 cars. So these kind of broader inequalities also exist. Similarly, a 1 point increase in interventions that restrict cross-border data flow can actually impact trade output in a country by 7%. So there's real significant multipliers behind all of this as well. And particularly relevant to us in the data development world, gaps in data can also prevent us from making the right decisions. For example, only 19 out of the 51 gender-specific SDG indicators can actually be reliably monitored at a global level because there's real gaps in collecting data at the local and national levels in many countries and communities. But just to end on a slightly more optimistic note, data is absolutely essential. It drives decision-making and policy-making and innovation. And we saw this during the COVID-19 pandemic, where data was a really crucial tool to support city governments and others in keeping their residents safe and the communities safe and secure as well. I'm now going to stop and hand over to the first of our 2 presenters. So I'm going to call Peter up in a minute. Peter is the vice chairman of OIC Prague, a joint stock company fully owned by the city of Prague. He is in charge of the Prague data platform, urban innovations, and also a wide range of strategic projects as well. So he's going to present the Prague data platform, which is an open source solution providing business intelligence to decision makers, as well as to other city-owned companies on a business-to-business model of collaboration founded on performance-based service level agreements. So Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Callum. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning or afternoon or evening, everyone. I'll dive right into this. I hope you can see my screen. So one of my major projects that I'm responsible for is the Prague data platform. It's called Golemio. The reason why it's called is historic, but there was this fairy tale where there is a golem that basically protects the city of Prague, and I think this is very much an apt name, because the whole point of data is to make sure that no one is left behind and nowhere is left behind, and focusing on making sure that data is accessible and available to everyone has been one of the main driving forces for us. What you'll see here are kind of some snapshots of dashboards, and Callum had talked a little bit about dashboards, and I'll dive into each one of those, because I think oftentimes pictures tell a better story than words. But basically our work spans across different types of data domains. We work with dynamic data, we work with static data. We operate altogether about 120 different dashboards that are being used by hundreds of users. Some of these users are at the city hall, some of them are at or work at city-owned organizations or companies. Some of these are, of course, private entities, such as large corporates. Innovation is one of the main things that we've kind of developed and built into the whole system. We originally started with a Cisco provided system, and we very quickly realized that having quite unique needs, we are actually better off developing our own data platform. And so I'm in charge of a data science team of about 28 people, and we have developers, we have front-end developers, we have product managers, and so we do work very closely with our clients to basically supply them with the types of services that they're looking for. Our architecture is completely modular. We develop everything ourselves inside the house, and we assume a data first approach. That means we try to aggregate and collect as much data as there is and make them available if it's it's possible. We're also in charge of operating and running the Prague open data strategy, and we published the open data catalog that's become the national standard. We are able to consume, as I said, any kind of data and an interface, and provide custom-based data that are tailored to particularly improving services in the city of Prague and improve decision-making at the level of our main stakeholder, which is the city. We work across domains. What you see here are just some of the examples of the data, from car sharing to parking to lighting, to waste management, to Airbnb data. For example, we're looking at the usage of Airbnb, and of course linking some policy recommendations to that, to the cities. I'm sure you have noticed that there are more restrictions coming now to Airbnb to ensure that that negative externalities are eliminated. Our system is open source, so we do have some Microsoft functionalities, and that's mainly because we need to manage access with some very sensitive data. But our system is open source. I can send you the link to the source code, and basically you can take it and use it for your own city, if it was that easy, of course. But in theory, you could. Our main client, as I said, is the city of Prague. It's about 80% of our projects are with the city of Prague, but we do work with other entities. Interestingly enough, we publish data that we publish again, and our open AI is being used by about 500 users. One of those are, for example, Google Maps. So Google Maps is basically showing when a public transit tram or a bus or a subway is delayed, and by how much, and so you can plan your trip accordingly. So you have almost next to real time up-to-date data that help you plan your journey more accurately. Now, how do you build a data platform? For us, people are at the core, and technology is something that helps us get to a particular place. If we can have an amazing dashboard, an amazing set of data, but if it doesn't have an end user, it doesn't really make sense to develop it. And so we always start with the user, and we ask the user, what is your problem and how can we help you solve it using data? And so data is a means to an end, but it's not an end to a means. Now, we always look for solutions that can be scalable, and that helps us. Of course, a huge benefit for this is having an internal team of analysts, of developers. We work in Agile. We have Scrum certified experts. We prototype. We do lots of discovery, exploration of new trends on the market, and we approach new clients or existing clients with ideas for innovation or improvement. I'll now dive into the dashboards. I do apologize. Some of them are in Czech, but I think they help kind of with, it helps illustrate the, try to have for some English descriptions. But for example, this is what I was talking about. This is the tram number 22. You can see it's delayed by 7 minutes. And so if you're waiting for it, you know that it's delayed, and oftentimes it says why it is delayed. You can also, if the tram is air conditioned, which is becoming increasingly important. You see here the little snowflake. If the tram is accessible to people with disabilities, to moms with strollers, if you can pay wirelessly, if there's Wi-Fi. So there is an amazing amount of information that you can use and plan your journey to make sure your journey is as comfortable as it can be. And so it gives you an entire overlay of the city of Prague, of all the delay that is basically all the delayed trams that are in the city. What is also good is that you have the same information in Google Maps. That basically Google Maps is taking this data that we publish on our open API and is integrating that into Google Maps. This is a map of collection points of recycled waste. So we're in charge of equipping waste bins with sensors, and so we don't do on-demand collection, but what we do is dynamic collection. And what it basically means is that if you actually do on-demand collection, you create more carbon footprint because you're driving to each of these bins separately. Now, if you do dynamic collection of waste, you get the bin, and the bin knows when it's full enough, but it also knows how that there's a collection vehicle, truck or a lorry close enough for it to be collected, and that's basically when you start generating savings. The next one, a very different dashboard, is a comparison of the evolution of Airbnb prices. Now, so what we tried to do was we tried to separate basically where it's genuinely shared economy, and that means, or gig economy, that you're actually renting out a room in your house or in your apartment, and that's being used temporarily, versus large funds buying up entire apartment buildings and renting those out, or Airbnb. That is highly speculative, but also has a massive impact on the on affordable housing, on of course livability on that street, and so on and so forth. And of course we gave some policy recommendations to our politicians in terms of how to regulate Airbnb. We do lots of work now. Of course, the energy crisis has created quite a lot of work for us when it comes to remote sensing and generating potential savings. So what we're able to do now with data is we're able to tell different tenants that they're perhaps reserving a lot more gas than they're actually using, and that can generate hundreds of thousands of euros for some of these large tenants, such as the city of Prague. We're managing about 1,500 different buildings that the city owns, and we're going to scale this to about 5,000. So that's with energy. This is another kind of traffic related one. What this helps us to do is we know far ahead when there are road closures, be it road reconstruction, but it can also be that there's a Netflix series that's being filmed in the city center, and we have a large traffic models that basically tell us what are the best ways for people to drive around these obstacles or closures. And so we have a dashboard for that, and that's being used by the city hall quite a bit. This is another one we use. I'm sure cities have free access to Waze data, and so we've used Waze data to calculate average times that it takes to a taxi from the city center to the airport. And on that basis, the city basically created one tariff, and so you can use that one tariff and get from the city of Prague to the city center, knowing how much it's going to cost you, and that kind of eliminates people getting overcharged and all that. So this is an example of a Waze-based data dashboard. We also work with visual data. So there's about 2,500 fixed cameras. Very sensitive topic, so we don't do facial analysis. I should say this as a disclaimer. There's often discussions about this, but we measure the number of people that kind of pass through these red lines. And what that helps us to do is it helps us manage crowd, make public spaces safer in terms of pickpocketing and all that, but also particularly in the COVID crisis, we were looking at if there are bottlenecks that are where there's too many people that are too close together, and there's a potential or higher potential for spread of the virus. So it helps you manage crowd, and of course visual data, counting people, how many people pass through a particular fixed spaces, is one way to do it. This is another way to manage. This is for cyclists, so number of cycle crossings. We get this basically, we do a report on a daily basis, and so you pretty much know at what time, what day people are cycling in which direction. What it helps you to do is to help understand how many cyclists you have in the city, but also what is the demand and the stress that's being put on the infrastructure. And so that of course helps planning with mitigation, with expanding some of these large cycle pathways or cycle lanes, extend them to maybe new areas where we are understanding there's demand. So again, one of these very useful dashboards to support low carbon mobility. And then development of number of passengers. So we do know how many people are using public transit, and we're able to basically add more and have more kind of on-demand services when it comes to very busy days or months or festivals that are happening in the city. So that's a number of passengers in public transit. We of course have dashboards that look at social services. What was happening was if you applied for a senior home, you'd have to apply to a senior home, to 3 different or 4 different senior homes. Now, if you got allocated one, you were still kind of in the waiting list for the other 3 or other 2. What this means is it centralizes all the applications into one place. So once you're allocated a senior home, you're no longer waiting for the other senior, taking up space to other people that are in need of a senior home. So this was quite a useful dashboard that's being used by the social services. This is something quite again relevant. This is the number of people that were granted residence that were refugees escaping the war in Ukraine. So of course you see the top here is the city of Prague. This is over a year and a half old dashboard, but basically Prague has had the largest amount of refugees, and but we went far beyond. We went, you can see this huge disparity. So 96,000 is women, 24,000 was men, and 94,000 were basically kids and young adults, and quite a few seniors, 7,500. It's of course now a lot more than that, a year and a half later. But we don't only look at the numbers, but we also look at what is their skill set, and is there something that the city can do to help refugees to get jobs and find employment. Get upskilled, get reskilled, get them housing and or adequate housing, help them with their needs. So that was one of these useful dashboards that we've developed in relation to that war in Ukraine. So that's I would say kind of a very rough taste of what we're doing in Prague, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are any, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Peter. Hugely insightful, really important work. I've got quite a few questions I'm going to get to later, but we'll pick that up in a moment. I'd just like to also introduce our second panelist, Sultan. You can see on the screen there. Sultan is the Chief Executive Officer of ICT in Greater Amman Municipality. He is acting and running the complete e-service transformation and IT operations, and also driving the Smart City Roadmap for future and strategic plans. Sultan, just before your presentation, do you have any initial reflections or questions to Peter?
Yes, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Colum. It's a nice presentation, and there is a lot of offer you can do it. But if I can ask you about analyzing data, I don't hear about anything of artificial intelligence by analysts. The data you are now trending in the whole world using AI by analysts and taking a decision for the government. If you can help us or tell us, are you using any AI solution in your platform?
Yes, so we've been using AI for a while now. Now, I think sometimes these technology trends are are determining what we do, and I think rather it's important to look at, and that was one of the points I was trying to stress is, I think there's lots of technology. The question is, does it really help you solve a particular issue? And oftentimes it's not technology, it doesn't have to be AI. But I can say, and I have a pretty big development team, so programmers, they do use these large language models, be it ChatGPT and whatnot, these LLMs that basically help them draft parts of code, for example. And so they would be spared the effort writing it themselves, and they would just go and actually fix parts of it. There's quite a lot of hallucination. I'm sure you've heard of that when it comes to these kind of AI-based chatbots. But we do use them. We have regulations in terms of what can be shared. Of course, there's quite a lot of sensitive data. Particularly when it comes to health, well-being services. GDPR compliance. We operate in the European ecosystem that is very, very sensitive on data protection, and we have very strict rules about that. But I do think that there are useful use cases for AI that speed up work, and I see that in my development team. Now, when it comes to data analysis itself, particularly with the mobility data, when we're looking at some abnormalities, we would use an AI powered or AI, I would say, amplifier or enhanced tool to help us understand where these abnormalities are and what is causing them. And so there is quite a lot of that happening, particularly with regards to mobility data. But at the end of the day, you still have to have a human being, look at this and make sure that it's correct. And there's quite a lot of data analysis that's kind of still being done by hand. As digital as we like to be, yes.
Indeed. Well, I think we'll get to that later in terms of the offline elements too. Very topical question, Sultan. Thank you for that, and thank you both. So I'm going to hand over to you, Sultan, now and for your presentation, and to give the audience a bit of a preview. Sultan is going to present on the project called Amman is Listening, that is built on the experience of what they call reachability maps that were generated during the pandemic to deliver food and healthcare. The presentation will also talk about how the city of Amman is launching an interactive open data platform for residents to elevate their concerns and also inform the deployment of critical city services in real time. Sultan, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. Again, why we are called it Amman is Listening platform. It's online participatory platform with the interactive reachability maps responding to the residents' needs during crisis and strength urban resilience. As you know, why its idea come for us. During the COVID-19 lockdown in Amman, over 15 of residents faced a difficult by using the essential services on foot. We have here in Jordan or in Amman, especially a lack of special services for the citizen by using their foot through the lockdown. So the infrastructure of Amman is built for 7 mountains. It's very neighborhood regulation challenges we have. Amman is not a pedestrian friendly city used. We design a short coming poor lighting, a lack of proper sidewalks. So this is the idea of the platform. It's coming to us. What is the problem we can solve? We can solve a participation, and since belonging to the city, we have a law of trust of government, including GAM of the service, where we have a lack of the access of the essential services by foot, and the limited crisis management in the corona or the other crises. As you know, we have a lot of refugees here in Amman. We have a limited of management of this crisis, which the citizen can take or get the essential services. So we need an online participatory platform with our interactive reachability maps responding to the residents' needs during the crises and strength urban resilience. And Amman infrastructure is not pedestrian friendly, as we need providing a solution to encourage residents to navigate in our city in Amman by using their foot or to take the essential necessary. Who's the beneficiaries from this platform? We divide this at the two section will be for someone for the citizen, which we must to hear what they need, the citizen or the all in Amman, who's what they need, where they're interactive by open data platform source, by the residents give us a feedback for our project in the city. As you know, we are the municipality, we are taking a lot of services for the our citizens, for our citizen. So we need to feedback for our service, and we need to feel the citizen feel this decision consideration in our feedback. Our policy maker or the decision maker in Greater Amman municipality, when we are taking the vision or our strategy in Greater Amman municipality, we should listen for our people, for our citizen about the project. So we have awareness in the city, the planners about the residents, viewer on city, and it will be a community for the infrastructure or the public spaces. City builds pedestrian-friendly infrastructure based on citizen needs. So we thinking we have two kind of outcomes. One of the short-term outcomes to increase public participation by build a robot between the municipality and the residents and encourage the collaboration between different committee. And we have a unified open data platform and to innovate the problem solving. This is about our short-term outcomes. About the long-term outcomes, institutionalize public involvement, establish an ongoing feedback loop with the residents, and to resilience to future crises. As you know, now we are faced a lot of the crises here in the Middle East. So we have effectively to manage with the mitigate and to impact the future crisis by leveraging the data for the citizen. If we heard from the citizen what they need, what they have, what they thinking about the crisis, we can serve them better than. So we have enhanced municipal services. We have already launched 134 e-services in Greater Amman municipality, but we should listen about what is the service, what can the citizen can take about walkability and urban design improvement. About SDG addressed already Greater Amman municipality, our commitment about the SDG sustainable stance community and the target by 2030 to ensure access for all safe and affordable new housing by basic services. Of international map aligned to our short and long-term plans. Amman municipality have a lot of maps and international maps. So we titled Amman is listening, include a strategic plan, the smart city roadmap. By the way, Greater Amman municipality launched the strategy of a smart city vision, which include a lot of projects, about 10 projects about smart lighting and smart traffic control. So we can get a lot of data from this platform. But if we don't hear about the citizen, what he needs, we cannot help him and serve him as he needs. So our commitment from the mayor of Greater Amman municipality, he include our idea in the strategy of Amman about 5 next year. The mayor will sustain a project establishing an innovation lab and consider a department for this reason, obtain the benefit of horizontal communication with all internal and external sector, and we will activate a neighborhood volunteers community, a part of a new Amman municipality law. We change our law to listen and to from the citizen by 22 members of our city council from the citizen around the city. We have believed that if we need to success, we will enter their relationship, our partnership with the other ministry and another department like National Center for Security or Crisis Management or Royal Jordanian Geographical Center. It will help us to prepare open data platform and support the data analysis phases. And civil defense and sustainable community and development association, it will help community to organize a unit of participatory process. We have a lot of challenges here in Amman, but let me mention the three in the major road network and navigation. We have a lack of this one, so we think we update our building and street names and partner with external party and the gathering of the data set because from the entity, because as you know, the law of the city is different from another city. Something about the water and the electricity is not with us in the Greater Amman municipality. So we should do a MOU and sharing the data from the other entity. And we have a lack of the public participation. So we provide the interactive and reward system. What we next will do, we believe the data set will be finalized and finalize the MOUs and create a unified database. Product processing, we are now finalize the product roadmap and gathering all technical team and start technical development and go live in the long term. So together we can build a more robust city, respond to the crises, and enhance urban resilience by adapting a lean design approach. We think by this project will move our city from a step to a good step by sharing with the other project like Smart City Platform. So Amman is listening. It's as its name, we should listen from the citizen and hear what they need and improve our services through the crisis and through anything it will be happen in the future. Thank you again. If there's any question, I very grateful to answer it.
Thank you, Sultan. Hugely interesting presentation. Thank you. I'll just give the floor to Peter. Peter, any initial reflections or a question to Sultan?
Yes, thank you, Sultan. That was really interesting. I mean, I have two questions. I have rather on publishing data. If you plan to publish data, if you're developing a data lake or data store or a place where people can engage with data, and then maybe that leading to SMEs using that data to improve their businesses or start new businesses. My other question was on participation. If there's if you're considering both digital and non-digital ways for people to get involved on particular topics, and if you had, I mean, you've listed some of those. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Just while Sultan's unmuting, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, and we'll come to the audience questions in a moment. Sultan, over to you.
Sure. We will publish the data for the citizen and for the commercial and this stage, because we have in Jordan here, we have a government law about the open data or the structure of the data for what we can publish in the online or not. But here in this project, in the first step of our project, we will offer for the citizen what they need of the initial of the data can use and take our service. But for the economic reason, we think we must do our work on the data which we can offer for example, for them to use this data for the business. And we will collect the data from the driving, for example, from the street and from the other to publish it. But the second question, I cannot hear him. Please, if you can repeat it.
You talked about kind of low levels of participation, and so I'm interested in if you're using or planning to use some digital instruments, but maybe not. I mean, you talked about maybe some community engagement on a local level. I don't know, community managers. But what are the ways for people to engage with the city, basically?
Yes, we look for to engage the people about the plan of our project and to take what you have from that project. For example, here we are talking about the zoning, or for example, for waste management, or for the road, and for building permitting. We are government. We are to take this our project about our budgetary, about our engineering, about our planner. But we must to hear from the citizen: is they really needs these services in the local community? If they need, for example, for school, for medicine lab, for anything, we can collect all these questionnaires or all this feedback and build it from our budget and our strategy next years, for example. But now in our law in Amman, we have 22 members of the city council. They look for our project, but we must listen from the citizen themselves, not from the 22 just.
Understand.
We'll come back to you in a moment with a few more questions, but Peter, a question to you. You mentioned in your presentation you're using or looking to explore elements like Airbnb data, other commercial data sets. From experience, it can be quite hard to get data from the private sector. There's commercial confidentiality, sensitivity, and so on. How are you building these kind of relationships with private sector data providers?
Yes.
So I'll let Peter jump in first, and then I'll come to you.
Or Sultan. Go ahead, Sultan. It's fine.
Yes, I think we have already a relationship between the commercial company, for example, by using MOUs. Little from our sharing if they share their data with us. For example, like provider for the telephone, they already have a lot of data. But if they share it with us with the MOU or like some control of their data, they can share it because they need data from me already. They need that from me. It will be in the both side, from me data
Exactly.
and to him data.
Fantastic. No, that mutual reciprocity, I think, is really, really important and sometimes gets forgotten. Thank you, Sultan. Peter, do you want to jump in?
I mean, yeah, it's really difficult. So there are some companies that are willing to share data for free. Waze is a good example. So if you're looking at mobility data, Waze and you have good penetration of coverage, Waze is actually quite a good company to work with. They give you their data for free. We've worked with MasterCard on transaction data, and again, it depends what is the issue that you're trying to solve. With Airbnb, it's impossible. So what they do is their business model is based on publishing where you have available properties and what dates and what location. And so you can scrape that. Of course, it's a lot more work for us, but it's strategically important. And so we're scraping Airbnb data. We don't really have an official collaboration, but from scraping, you can find out quite a bit. But I would say that there is a change in the wind in terms of collaborating with the private sector, public sector, and we see more companies wanting to work with us on particular use cases that, because it helps us amplify or expand our service, but it helps them improve their product ultimately. So, and I think it's a good thing for Amman as well. I think when you are a large city that has a bit of a clout, so to say, you can use that to your advantage, and usually companies are looking to work with cities of a certain size, and I think you have that as well.
Thanks, Peter. Just a broader question for you, and then I'm going to come back to you in a moment, Sultan. But Peter, one of my favorite topics is open source, and we actually have a paper coming out soon on the role of open source and cities. You've also shared the code in the chat for your platform, your GitHub, and so on. Can you maybe tell the audience a little bit more about why cities should be thinking about exploring open source solutions and not just proprietary solutions?
Yes, so we were in a vendor lock. Basically, we were using a Cisco Kinetic, and the problem was that every time you wanted to add a new feature, you had to pay licensing fees, or you had to change the contract. Now, we live in a time when you have AI and you have all these new technologies that are coming to the market, and you don't know how they're going to affect the way you do business, or how you operate, or how you run your services. And so we got to a point that it is economically more sensible, but it is also more efficient for the city to have its own data science team and have its own data platform. And to do that, we basically said we shouldn't be in any vendor lock-in. We shouldn't be in a Microsoft ecosystem or Oracle or who have you, or Cisco. We should have our own ecosystem. It should be as open as possible. And it should be based on open collaboration, but it should also be shareable. So if there's other cities or there's regions outside of Prague that are using parts, for example, of our data platform, and we're helping them get it up and running, because of course you would have different needs in different geographies, but we're doing this also as a service to other cities so that they can have access to this. There are multiple cities that can't afford to have their own data science team, or that can afford to develop their own data platform. But having said that, there are some parts that you can do on open source. For example, we know these issues with access management, that we are using Power BI for our dashboards, so there are kind of paid for things that you can extend to, but the core and I would say 95% of the platform is open source, and I think it is the general way forward for lots of the public sector anyway.
Thanks, Peter. We've got a broader question for both panelists. Sultan, I'm going to turn to you first. You can see the question in the chat as well, in case you're having audio issues. So Dinah's asking you both, are local decision makers and policymakers and others actually making better decisions because of this data, or are they not using data to make decisions or better decisions? Sultan, do you want to jump in first, and then we'll come back to you, Peter?
I think with the data, the decision maker have a good decision for our project. By sharing the data, and we take the data from the citizen, our objects will be good enough. Not like this now. We are talking about the project by our analysts, our engineers, and our budgetary. But if we hear from the citizen what they already need, because they are using all the services from this project, I think we should listen from our citizen for planning our in the gap.
That's it. Thank you. Peter, just briefly, do you want to jump in?
So yeah, we don't start a project unless there's a clear user at the end of it. It just doesn't make sense. So every single dashboard, I know that there are people looking at it, and I actually have metrics that tell me how many times they look at that dashboard and what particularly are they looking at. And we have it doesn't make sense to develop dashboards that have no users because it's like having a TV and not looking at it, or buying a phone and not using it. So so I think you have to always start with your client, with your customer, understand what their needs are, understand how to help them get to where they want to go, and through an iterative process, use the right tools to make sure that they're looking at the right type of information, that they're getting the right visual tools, and that the data is being contextualized, interpreted in the right way, so that they can make better decisions. So absolutely, I would say decision making. There's one example with COVID. I mean, we have very little time, but basically what was happening was quite a few cities actually across the world were heavily undigitized in terms of planning vaccination strategies. And so you would get a classic flip chart, and you look at how many hospitals and how many people might show up for a vaccination. And we had the same thing in Prague, and basically what happened was, all the vaccines ran out at 12 in the afternoon, and so and then you had people that were willing to get vaccinated, but you didn't have any vaccines there. They were in essential storage, and so we developed a basic dashboard, a tool to plan and predict demand for vaccinations, and that helped tremendously. It cost very little, but it helped get a lot more people vaccinated when it was very much needed. So I would say it's exactly that, having these user or data stories, as we call them, behind each of these use cases that are solving a particular challenge.
Thank you, Peter. Sultan, there's two questions in the chat that I think build upon this, and they're directed to you. One is your usage of things like satellite and aerial data. In terms of how you're actually using this data, are you contracting with international bodies? Are you having these you mentioned MOUs earlier, is that the kind of framework you're using for satellite data? And then the second question, which is kind of linked to what we're talking about now, is in terms of what tools you're actually using to, I guess, engage local citizens in a deeper way and to get that feedback and to inform that decision-making process.
Yes, about the first question. We are workshop and survey for that and committee meeting, but the MOU we have already do with the MOU with other ministry and department, and already the private sector about what technology, what tools, what can offer for the citizen. We are thinking now. We have already a website for Amman, but we are thinking to enhance this website and mobile application and the social media tools to listen from and take the survey from the citizen. We are building now and enhance the new website in latest version technology. This will be offered in the I think next month in the tendering in the market for build this website and mobile application, and already the social media tools.
Fantastic, thank you. We're running a little bit out of time. Generally, I've got about 10 more questions I could do. We could run this for another 2 hours, I think. But just to both of you, one, I think, final wrap-up question. Sultan, I really like the title, Amman is Listening. It's a really powerful one. But for both of you, when you've been listening and when you've been engaging with your populations, what one unusual thing have you heard? Like what thing that you've heard through data that has really surprised you? Sultan, do you want to jump in first?
Yes, we think this project Amman is listening. We think we have a lot of idea. We have a lot of work in here, and we have a lot of thinking about what the citizen needs. We're thinking this is a project will be about 3 years. About first year, we will have a lot of work for this project. Amman is listening.
Thanks, Sultan. And Peter, to you, when you've been using data and you've been hearing from residents, citizens, others in the community, What one surprising thing have you heard during the data collection process?
There's a fun story. So we have a fleet of electric vehicles, and one of my employees parked on an intersection, not because they wanted to, but because they were checking some sensors. And we actually have this platform where you can take a photo and then send it back. And it seems that this kind of this is the way we're listening. That's why I was asking about the digital tools, and I got this feedback that we probably shouldn't be parking in the middle of an intersection. And I had this chance to explain that there were reasons behind this, and I think open communication, but being open to constructive critique is very important to kind of drive this discussion forward. But maybe more seriously, I think one of the most interesting things was that, and I was hinting at that at the beginning of the presentation, was when you plan your journey, you want to have a nice experience, and you don't want to be kind of sweating in 40 degrees in a tram. And so one of the interesting inputs was that that people would like to know where the air-conditioned trams are, because there's lots of historic trams that don't have air conditioning or aren't equipped with air conditioning, and that just helps improving user experience. You can plan your journey and have a cool trip to work or to home, and knowing when your air-conditioned tram arrives. I mean, it sounds like a luxury thing, but for a lot of people, it was very important. And so that's one of the things that I thought was quite unique and helped us improve a service.
Thanks, Peter. We're about to run out of time, so just a real sincere thank you from our side to both of you. I've taken a few notes as you've been talking. I've got a few closing thoughts. I think summarize some of your points and your experience. So I think what we've heard, that a lot of work around data isn't actually digital. It's offline, it's analog. It's about building relationships with data providers, with partners, the mutual benefit that you talked to Sultan. But also, Peter, it's about connecting, like you say, with communities and building that kind of rapport, and also grounding this all in people's needs and realities and aspirations. The second piece that I think is one that Diana touched upon in the chat is that data is really essential. We need to be using data to provide insights and perspectives to inform decision making, including to surface the kind of unexpected examples you've both just been talking to. And I think venues like this are really important. How do we learn from each other, build on best practice? Elements like open source, how do we adapt solutions that are already working elsewhere and not starting from scratch, I think is really fundamental. And then just finally to close, data fundamentally is about supporting people. It's about driving the kind of behavior change that you talked to, Peter. It's the outcomes that you talked to, Sultan, improving people's lives and livelihoods. So I think we really do need to be listening. And so I think this has been a really, really exciting conversation, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you.